everybody, my name is Julie and welcome to A Beautiful Horizon, where we talk about homemaking, homeschooling, and intentional living. Today we're talking about homeschooling, so this is actually a tag video. I'm going to be answering some questions, and I was tagged by Claudia from Faith Through Arrows. I will be tagging Tabitha, Juli, and Deanna. I will have their channels linked in the description box. And I will also have the questions linked, so if anyone watches this and they want to do this tag, you can grab the questions below and make your own video. So the first question is, how many years have you been homeschooling? And I actually started with my oldest when he was old enough to start kindergarten, and he's in 6th grade now. So this is our 7th year homeschooling. How many children do I homeschool is the next question. And I have 3 kids, and my youngest is starting kindergarten this year, so I have 3 kids doing school this year. So we have 6th grade, 2nd grade, and kindergarten. And I have videos sharing the curriculum that I'm using and kind of my teaching style a little bit in the description. They're in my homeschooling playlist if you want to check that out. So the third question was, what grades have you taught and which grades are you teaching, which I also just kind of answered. But yeah, I've taught everything from K to 6, and some of those a couple of times. So this says, what are some of your favorite homeschool curriculums? And I would say that I really like the Masterbooks Math. My son started using Masterbooks Math in 4th grade, I believe. So he did 4th and 5th grade, and now he's doing 6th grade. My daughter has been through 1st grade and is now in 2nd. And my youngest is doing their kindergarten math. And so we have enjoyed that. And pretty soon I'll be able to say I've done every grade from K to 6. Next year, if my daughter does the 3rd grade with their math, then I'll have done every grade from K to 6 with Masterbooks. And then last year, about halfway through last year, we started with spelling UC, and I have really enjoyed that. I have just really wanted something that was really well laid out and planned and very open and go when it came to spelling. There was just something in my heart that really wanted it to be some sort of, curriculum based spelling instead of just writing lists of words. I know that works for a lot of people, but I wanted something more structured for our family. And then also, my son this year is using dailygrams, and we've only done, I think like 8 or 9 days in it so far, but we really liked it. I love how it's very simple, but it's very hands-on and practical. And instead of just talking about it for 20 minutes and then doing 5 minutes of writing, it's just doing the writing, and in the writing you're learning about it. And I felt like since we've been doing that it had just helped my son, because he really learns best when he does it. When I'm telling him about it, it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other. So we're kind of cutting out that part. They do have that available if you buy their regular grammar program, but I decided just to go with the dailygrams. And since we've learned a lot of this stuff already, it's just review, and then, they have an answer book with it. And if there's anything we need to look up, we can then do that. But we're not spending a bunch of time talking about it and then actually learning about when we do it. We are just doing it and learning about it while we do it. And I've really enjoyed that. And so I'm hoping by the end of the year, I'm still going to enjoy it and want to use it with my other kids as well. The next question is, what is your least favorite curriculum? And I wouldn't necessarily point to any one curriculum and say I don't like that curriculum, but I would say that the idea of a language arts program did not work for my family. I tried 2 different companies of a language arts program, and neither of them worked for us. So first we started with The Good and the Beautiful, and it just didn't work with my teaching style or my kids' learning style. And then we tried Masterbooks, and I liked it a little better, but I still felt like it wasn't right for us. And then this year I decided to have a spelling program and a grammar, easy application program sort of thing, and then have just like handwriting along with our unit studies. And this year has been the best as far as I can tell so far. Like I said, we've only done like a couple of weeks, and because we're doing year round. But so far, it's just felt like the right fit for us. Finally, this year, I gave up on the idea of language arts. And one of the reasons was that I wanted to incorporate art studies and the geography and all those different things in with our unit studies. And so doing those things as part of a language arts program was kind of just taking our time away from spending more time in unit studies and learning about things in that context. And I felt like the couple of areas that I really wanted to focus on, that was not so much of the focus on a day-to-day basis. So things like Bible were in these language arts programs, which we do with everything else that we do. And in our day-to-day life, we do lots of Bible type stuff. So I didn't feel like I needed it for that. I didn't want it for the art or the geography or even the literature. We read books with our unit studies and stuff. And so I felt like the places where I wanted it to help us, it kind of just said, okay, now on this day, after you do a few things, now go practice your spelling words. And I wanted something a little more, write out this and do this. And I really love the Spelling You See program that's so involved. And yet it's 10 minutes a day. So it's not even that it takes longer. It's just got a more well thought out, planned process for learning instead of just, okay, now go practice these 10 spelling words for the week. That didn't work for us. And so I felt like, why am I doing this language arts program if it's not teaching us the two things that I really wanted to teach us? Grammar was like one day a week, which is fine, but I wanted it to be a little more repetitive so it could really get, stuck in the brain a little better than just doing it once a week. So as far as what's my least favorite, I would say that method, not necessarily what company created it. Okay, number 6 is, how do your children socialize? And it's an interesting question to ask right now because we're not allowed to socialize. And I find this interesting from a perspective of a person who was homeschooled, and I have been asked this question my whole life. What about socialization? I actually made a whole video about it along with my mom. My mom was in the video, but it was based on a post that I had written years ago, maybe 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. I can't remember exactly how long. Around a decade ago, I wrote this blog post about socialization. I broke down the definition of the word socialization, what it is, and whether how I want my child to be socialized, if it's, in a school setting, or if, I want a little more say in how they are socialized, and, it kind of goes into a bunch of details. So that video is actually no longer on my channel. It is on my Patreon account, which I will link in the description box. We are going to be putting together a plan for my mom and I to do videos on my Patreon account, and it'll just be like $5 a month. It's not something I'm trying to make a killing on, but it is something where I want people who are serious about some of these conversations that I would like to have. And I think having it in a nice enclosed environment where it's people who really want to have a place to chat and stuff. We can all talk about those types of things like socialization in a place where we can just come from a place of understanding each other, not just putting it out there on the internet, because it is really something that's close to my heart. So that video, I think, kind of explains how I feel about socialization. But that being said, the deeper side of socialization, on a lighthearted, just, how do they hang out with people aspect, we have neighbors. We generally go to church, usually, and we have field trips. We have, homeschool groups. It's just, we go out in society. We're around people a lot. And we don't live on an island. I think it's a really outdated notion that homeschoolers aren't socialized. I think there are people of all backgrounds that tend to be more extroverted or introverted. Just because you go to a public school doesn't mean that you have great people skills all of a sudden. Some people just don't like being around people, or, whatever. Some people choose to be unique, and I think that that's good. And I think it's actually funny that you hear a lot of people say, you do you, or live your truth, or, you know, all these different things that they say now. And yet, if a homeschooled kid decides to be themselves, then, there's some sort of like double standard here that I just have been thinking about lately. I think it's interesting that on the one hand, we're saying you need to be socialized, and on the other hand, we're like, speaking out two sides of our mouth, saying, oh, you need to be true to yourself and all this stuff. So I'm like, which one is it? Are we supposed to, kind of figure out our beliefs and value systems based on the group, or are we supposed to be ourselves and live our own truth? So until they can figure that out, I'm just going to keep raising my kids, living my life over here. How many hours a day do you homeschool? This is a very interesting question, and I bet there are a wide variety of answers, which I think is awesome. I love that with homeschooling, we can all do things our own way and teach our own kids and cater to our family's lifestyle and our children's needs. I am a big fan of this aspect of homeschooling. And even within our different families, I think this question is going to be answered different ways in different seasons. And even on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes it's a very short amount of time and we get everything done really quickly, and other times it just kind of spreads out throughout the day and we get it done at our leisure, because right now we don't have anywhere to go anyway. But like I said, with our spelling, it takes about 10 minutes. Grammar is going to take 10 to 15 minutes, and then math is going to be the one of the core subjects that's going to take longer. For my 6th grader, it might be half an hour, 45 minutes maybe. And then my younger kids, it's probably going to take less time. But I have 3 kids, so my time has to be divided up a little bit. Sometimes I can do one thing and help somebody with something else, but sometimes I want, to just focus on one person at a time. So every day is different. Every day is different. And then we have our unit studies, which we could be reading for a long time. We can be, watching a video, and then we'll find another video and we'll watch that, and then we'll do a project, and then we'll, whatever. We'll draw some pictures and learn some things. So it really depends on the day. I feel like I cannot give an accurate answer for that question, because it's just kind of different each day. But for like core subjects, I'd say a couple of hours, and then unit studies could be the rest of the day, and then, or a couple more hours perhaps, and then I feel like all of life is learning. I'm constantly, finding opportunities to teach my kids things, and I treasure those moments when they come, and I really enjoy, having teaching opportunities throughout the day whenever something presents itself. Do you homeschool year-round? And this is actually something that I can say yes to now. This year we decided to finish the school year last year, take about 2 weeks, and then start tapering back into a school flow. And one of the reasons that I'm doing this is that I think it's helpful for my kids to have something to ground them during the day, especially right now when we're not doing a lot of the things that we would normally be doing during this season of being at home so much. And so having something during the day that kind of keeps us on track, like, okay, now we got to do this. It just kind of gives us something positive to do, and some guidance, for our time. And I also want to have plenty of time during the school year to take a day off if we're just not feeling it, So if I can get ahead of the schedule and have some break time, extra break time built into the rest of the year, I think that's ideal for our family. I do tend to, in a normal world, have a lot to do in December with, the holidays, end of November to December, January 1st even. That whole season of the end of November to the beginning of January is kind of busy. There's just things to do, places to go, people to see, usually. So that was one of the things I wanted to account for this year. One of the reasons why I got back into the school groove earlier, so I can have plenty of time to take off whenever I feel like we need it, or if we're just busy doing things. And who knows what the end of this year is going to look like. But generally in past years, that has been the time that I've wanted to take off the most. And also another factor is that in the state that I live in Florida, it is extremely hot in the summer. My kids don't necessarily want to play outside all day in the 100-degree heat. And so generally in December, there might be some cold days, but for the most part, it's nice and cool. And that seems to be the time where it's really pleasant to be outside, whereas in the summertime they do go out and play during the day, but they can't stay out all day because it's just so hot. Okay, so the next question is, what is an easy open and go curriculum for a newbie homeschooler? And I love this question. I think this is great, and hopefully it's helpful for people who are just getting started with homeschooling. I know I've heard a lot of people say that they were planning to homeschool this year, and for some of those people, I was actually really surprised. Like, I never pictured them being a homeschooler, which not like there's like one picture of a homeschooler, but it's just surprising to me, all these different people that are talking about homeschooling their kids now, or they're doing, virtual online school or something along those lines. And it's just like, it's exciting to me. I hope people have a good experience. And I would say I love spelling UC, and I love Master Books Math. And I have not used spelling UC very far. We've done A and B and part of C so far, but we've enjoyed it. And the math is Christian based, and I realize that not everybody who wants to be homeschooling is Christian, but the math is very religiously inclined. So if that's not your thing, you might not enjoy that math, but there's tons of options out there. There are lots of open and go options, and I would say, look around, look online, put in math homeschool something in YouTube, and see what the options are, and don't be afraid to try a couple different things as you're learning through the years. And then once you find what works for you, there you go. Keep using it. If it works for you, switch to something else the next year if it's not working for you. It's rare that I've had to switch something mid-year. I think that's only happened a couple times. And for the most part, I've been able to stick through with something even if I realized I don't really prefer it and I just change the next year. But there are lots of open and go options, lots of them. So for me, the math and the spelling were great, but there's lots of them out there. So just keep looking. And the last question is, what is your favorite thing about homeschooling? What's your favorite part of homeschooling? And wow, I feel like I could say so many different things. I love being with my kids. I like being around my kids. I once heard it said, don't let your kids do things that make you not like them. And I thought that was like really interesting. I mean, it seems so like, oh, well, that sounds this way. It's not that easy. I know, I have 3 of them. It's not always easy. But I do find that a lot of times when my kids are having a hard time, I am distracted from my life. This doesn't have to do with homeschooling necessarily, but maybe it can help somebody. And sometimes I just need to make sure that I am 100% there, and also that they are doing something productive with their time. I know there are scriptures that talk about a young man who is not occupied will bring his mother to shame, or something along those lines. I can link the scripture below, and I think that is so true. I think there are times when we don't enjoy being around our children because we're not directing them. We are letting them do whatever they're doing, and then we get upset, and I'm guilty of this. And it makes you not enjoy being with your child. And so I think being proactive with parenting and leading and discipling my children to have good moral character is important if I'm going to enjoy being around them. And I don't know how you can homeschool your child if you don't generally enjoy being with them. It could assume it would be extremely hard to do that. And so it's not easy, and I don't do it right all the time. I have to rethink my plans and my approach to things sometimes, but it's worth it. I really can say that although I have moments where I'm frustrated, I generally enjoy being around my kids, and I am so inspired by their creativity when I give them a piece of paper and some colored pencils and a pair of scissors, although the little tiny pieces of paper on the floor drives me nuts. But their creations are so interesting. And when they have a box of Legos and they build something awesome, it just makes me so happy that they have the time and that I am able to, get them some Legos, or they get them for Christmas, or get them paper and pencils, and watch them just flourish with their creativity. It makes me so happy that I have the ability to just kind of guide them a little bit and then let them fly, let them learn without me necessarily having to teach them everything. I can provide books and just leave them on the counter and they can open them and learn something. I can find shows that teach them something and let them watch them, and if they're interesting and they get their attention, they are learning. And then later on, they'll say something, they'll know something, especially about animals. They love like animal science, and they'll come up with this random fact that I didn't teach them. I just exposed them to someone who could teach them more than I knew. And I respect them for knowing something that I didn't have in my head. I hadn't memorized that fact, but I exposed them to these teachers, or maybe you would call them entertainers, but they taught my children something, and now my children can turn around and teach me something. And I once had someone say to me, how can you be a teacher of all these different subjects if you are not an expert in that area? And the truth is that I don't have to be an expert in every area to allow my children to learn in my home. I don't have to teach them everything. I don't have to know everything. I can find sources. I can find people who know a lot about something, and I can say, hey, kids, let's watch so-and-so. They're going to talk about history, and we're going to learn something, and I'm going to learn with you. I don't have to know everything, but I get to learn with them too, and I get to grow as a human, and it's exciting. That's exciting to me. And I think that the education of women is a good thing. And I think generally in our society, we believe that the education of women is a good thing. And I believe that I am extremely blessed that I not only got an education for myself, but each year that I teach my kids, I get more and more educated. I learn new things every year that I'm teaching my children, and finding new sources of people and organizations and curriculum that teach them. Every time I open a book, my son's grammar book, and we're reading, I'm like, oh, you know what? I forgot that. Or I didn't realize that was the rule that made that, spelling that way, or whatever. I'm learning constantly, and I appreciate that. And I think it's a blessing that I get to keep learning and learning and learning. So that is, that's it. I think I could say a lot more good things about homeschooling, but I love it, and I love that everybody can do it in their way that works for their family, and there's lots of support, and there are mothers that encourage me so much every time I get on Instagram or YouTube or my friends groups, and I appreciate it. So check out the ladies' channels that I will link below. They'll be doing this tag soon, so be sure to follow their channels. And watch Claudia's video as well. And thank you so much for watching my video. Thank you for hitting the like button. That really helps my channel. Subscribe if you thought this was a good video and you want to see more from me. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.